The nursery was a war zone. Toys flew through the air, crashing against the expensive hand-painted murals. 3-year-old Leo lay on the floor, his face flushed red, screaming with a grief that shook the walls. In the doorway, Julian Thorne looked exhausted. He ran a hand through his perfect hair, his patience finally snapping. "I pay you thousands of dollars," he shouted at the terrified staff hovering in the hallway. "Why can't anyone make him stop?" Suddenly, a woman stepped past him. Maya didn't look at the billionaire. In her faded dress and scuffed shoes, she looked like she didn't belong in the same zip code, let alone the same room. But she didn't hesitate. She walked straight into the storm. She knelt in front of the screaming boy, ignoring the flying blocks. She didn't speak. She didn't try to shush him. She just started to hum. It was a deep, sorrowful melody, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. Leo froze. The screaming cut off instantly, leaving a silence so heavy it felt like pressure in the ears. Slowly, the boy looked up. His lip trembled. He reached out a tiny hand, his fingers brushing the tears on Maya's cheek. He looked at her as if he were seeing a ghost. "Mama?" he whispered. The word was crystal clear. In the doorway, Julian's eyes went wide. The color drained from his face. He took a step forward, his voice barely a breath. "What did he just say?" Maya looked up, terror flooding her eyes. She had been in the house for less than 10 minutes, and the secret she had carried for 3 years was already spilling out. 3 weeks earlier, Maya was a ghost. She sat on a damp bus stop bench under a gray city sky, holding a newspaper damp with rain. She circled job ads with a red pen, but her eyes were empty. She lived in a city of millions, yet she didn't exist. No family, no money, just a secret she carried like a heavy stone in her chest. Later that day, she sat across from a stern agent in a cramped office. The woman slammed a file onto the desk. "I have one placement left," the agent said, looking skeptical. "But I have to warn you, it's the Thorne residence." Maya's head snapped up. "Julian Thorne, the tech CEO? The same. He needs a nanny immediately. But be warned, 5 women have quit in 2 weeks. The boy is troubled." Maya looked down at her hands. She touched the cheap silver locket around her neck, the only thing she had left from the life that was stolen from her. "I'll take it," she whispered. "I can handle trouble." She didn't take the job for the money. She took it because of a feeling, an instinct that had woken her up every night for 3 years. The Thorne mansion was less of a home and more of a museum. Massive glass windows, white marble floors, and an air of cold, expensive silence. Julian came down the floating staircase, fastening a luxury watch. He barely looked at the woman standing in his foyer. "You're late," he said. His voice clipped. "I'm sorry, sir. The bus." "I don't care about the bus," he cut her off, walking past her in a cloud of expensive cologne and stress. "I care about silence. My son has been screaming for an hour. If you can get him to sleep, you're hired. If not, don't bother unpacking." He paused at the door, turning to look at her for the first time with cold, steel-gray eyes. "And one more thing. Do not get attached. You are here to do a job, not to play, Mother. Is that clear?" Maya nodded, her heart pounding against her ribs. "Yes, sir." She walked up the stairs, the sound of screaming getting louder with every step. It sounded painful, heartbreaking. She pushed open the nursery door. There he was, Leo. He was curled in a ball in the corner, surrounded by the wreckage of his toys. He looked small and lonely. Maya felt her knees go weak. It's him. She knew it instantly. The shape of his head, the curl of his hair, the pull in her own soul. She stepped forward. The floorboards creaked. Leo looked up, ready to scream again, but he stopped when he saw her eyes. Maya ignored the rules. She ignored the do not touch policy Julian had just given her. She sat on the floor and opened her arms. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'm here now." Leo crawled into her lap. He fit perfectly, his head tucking under her chin as if he had been made for that exact spot. Down in the hallway, Julian watched the security feed on his phone. He saw the hug. He saw the peace that had settled over the room. But instead of relief, His eyes narrowed. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number, his voice low and dangerous. "Get me a full background check on the new girl," he said, watching Maya hold his son. Something isn't right. Julian Thorne did not believe in coincidences. When his son whispered, "Mama," to a stranger, Julian didn't hear a miracle. He heard a threat. For the next 2 weeks, the Thorne mansion became a chessboard. Julian watched Maya through the security cameras in his office. He watched her open the heavy velvet curtains to let the sunlight in. He watched her teach Leo how to plant marigolds in the garden dirt, ruining a pair of $300 trousers. He watched his son laugh, a sound that was foreign and terrifyingly beautiful. Julian was waiting for her to slip up. He was waiting for the thief, the con artist, the kidnapper. But all he saw was a woman who loved his son with a ferocity that unnerved him. And that was the problem. The Ice King was beginning to melt. It started with small things. A shared coffee in the kitchen at 6 a.m. A brush of hands as they both reached for Leo's dropped toy. The way the air in the room seemed to thicken whenever they were alone. Then came the gala. The annual Thorne Foundation Gala was not a party. It was a battlefield. Julian needed to secure a merger with the impossible Kovac Group, but rumors of his chaotic home life and unstable son were making the investors nervous. They wanted to see stability. They wanted to see a family man. "You will attend," Julian told Maya the morning of the event. It wasn't a request. "You will watch Leo in the private suite, but you will be presentable." Maya arrived in a dress she had found at a thrift store, a simple, midnight blue silk that clung to her frame. When she walked down the grand staircase, Julian stopped mid-sentence. He forgot about the investors. He forgot about his suspicion. For 10 seconds, he was just a man looking at a woman who took his breath away. But the night took a sharp turn. Elena Kovac, the daughter of the investor and a woman who had been trying to claw her way into Julian's bed for years, cornered him by the champagne tower. "My father is worried, Julian," she purred, her hand trailing up his lapel. "He thinks a single father is a liability. He thinks you need a wife to balance you out. I could be that balance." Julian felt the trap snapping shut. He looked across the room and saw Maya standing near the balcony, looking uncomfortable and radiant. Without thinking, he acted. He walked past Elena, grabbed Maya's hand, and pulled her into the center of the ballroom. "I'm afraid I'm already taken, Elena," Julian announced, his voice carrying over the orchestra. Maya's eyes went wide. "Sir?" she whispered, panic rising. "Play along," he murmured against her ear, his hand firm and possessive on her waist. "Please." They danced. It was meant to be a performance for the investors, a show of stability. But as they spun under the chandeliers, the distance between them vanished. Julian pulled her flush against his chest, inhaling the scent of her rainwater and cheap soap, better than any expensive perfume. "Everyone is watching," Maya breathed, her heart hammering against his ribs. "Let them watch," Julian said, his gaze dropping to her lips. The suspicion was gone, replaced by a hunger he couldn't control. "You're the only real thing in this room, Maya." For the first time in 3 years, Maya forgot the pain. She forgot the secret. She just felt him. Later that night, in the silence of the limousine, Julian didn't let go of her hand. "I know I asked you to pretend," he said softly, looking out at the passing city lights. "But tonight, I found myself wishing it wasn't a lie." Maya looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the loneliness beneath the billions. She realized with a jolt of terror that she was falling in love with the enemy. The crash from the high of the gala was brutal. The next morning, the house felt different, softer. Julian had left for the office with a lingering look and a promise to be home for dinner. Maya was humming as she ran the bath for Leo. She felt like she could start over here. Maybe she could tell Julian the truth. Maybe he would understand. Maybe they could be a family, a real one. "Bubbles!" Leo squealed, splashing water everywhere. Maya laughed, grabbing the washcloth. Okay, let's get you clean first." She ran the warm cloth over his back, scrubbing away the dirt from the garden. She moved the cloth over his left shoulder blade. She stopped. The world stopped. There, hidden beneath the soapy water, was a mark she hadn't seen since the day he was born. A small, jagged birthmark shaped exactly like a star. The hope of a new life was shattered by the ghost of the old one. Flashback. 3 years ago, the shady clinic on the edge of town, the smell of bleach and iron. The nurse holding up a crying newborn for just 3 seconds before whisking him away. "It's a boy," she had said. Maya had etched that star into her memory before the darkness of the anesthesia took her. When she woke up, they told her the baby had died. They told her she was hallucinating. Present day, Maya dropped the washcloth. Splash. "Mama?" Leo asked, tilting his head. Maya fell back against the cold tile of the bathroom floor, gasping for air. It wasn't a feeling anymore. It wasn't just instinct. It was proof. Julian Thorne hadn't just adopted a child. He had bought a stolen baby. The man who had held her so tenderly in the limo, the man she was ready to give her heart to, was the jailer keeping her son. A cold, hard resolve settled over her. The romance was dead. The fantasy was over. "We have to go," she whispered to Leo. "We have to go now." She couldn't wait for Julian to come home. She couldn't risk him finding out. She had to take her son and run. She packed a bag in a frenzy, her hands shaking so hard she could barely zip it. She grabbed the cash she had hidden in her mattress. She scooped Leo up, wrapping him in a blanket. "We're going on an adventure, baby," she lied. She crept down the stairs, the house silent. She reached for the heavy oak front door. Thunder shook the house. The heavy oak door didn't open. It was locked from the outside. Behind her, the library door creaked open. Julian stood there. But it wasn't the Julian from the gala. It wasn't the man who had looked at her with longing in the limousine. This was the Ice King, and he was freezing. In his hand, he held a thick manila folder. The background check. Julian had found a truth, but it was the wrong truth. Going somewhere? His voice was low, vibrating with a rage that terrified her more than his shouting ever could. Maya clutched Leo tighter. I was just taking him for a walk." "In the rain? With a suitcase?" Julian stepped into the foyer, tossing the file onto the marble table between them. It landed with a heavy slap. "My head of security is very thorough," Julian said, walking slowly toward her. "It took him 3 weeks to dig through your sealed juvenile records, to find the alias, to find the history of mental instability." He stopped inches from her. "You lied about your name," he accused. "You lied about your past. You infiltrated my home." Julian's heart was breaking, but his pride was screaming. He had almost let her in. He had almost proposed. Yes, the ring was sitting in his desk drawer right now, and she was just another con artist, another person trying to steal from him. "Give me my son," Julian commanded, holding out his hands. "No." Maya stepped back. "I said give him to me." Julian's voice rose to a roar. "You are a liar and a thief. I should have you thrown in jail." "You're the thief!" Maya screamed back, the fear replaced by a mother's fury. The two worlds collided. Julian thought he was protecting his son from a con artist. Maya thought she was saving her son from a kidnapper. "I trusted you," Julian yelled, grabbing her arm to pull her away from the door. "I let you into my life. I let you make me feel." "You stole him!" Maya cut him off, tears streaming down her face. "I adopted him. I saved him from the system." "He wasn't in the system," Maya shouted, the truth exploding out of her like a bomb. "He was in a clinic. They told me he died. They told me my baby was dead." Julian froze. His grip on her arm loosened. The anger on his face flickered, replaced by confusion. "What are you talking about?" he whispered. Maya ripped her arm away. She pulled the blanket down from Leo's shoulder, revealing the star-shaped mark. "Look at it, Julian, look at him." She looked Julian dead in the eye, and for the first time, she didn't look like a nanny. She looked like a queen reclaiming her crown. "He's not your son," she said, her voice breaking the silence of the massive house. "He's mine. The secrets are out. The romance is shattered by a truth too big to ignore. Julian stands between the woman he loves and the child he calls his own." Maya stands with the proof of a crime she believes he committed. Does Julian know about the clinic? Or is he a victim too? And now that he knows the truth, will he help the mother? Or protect his rights as the father? Subscribed for Act 3.